My name is Josh Miller. I'm 38 years old. And the day my wife sat across from me at our kitchen table, same table where we'd shared thousands of meals, where we'd laughed over morning coffee, where we'd made plans for our future, and said those words. I want an open marriage, because I'm in love with my boss. That was the day my entire world collapsed. Not slowly. Not gradually. It shattered. Like a glass window hit by a sledgehammer. Every piece of my life, every assumption I'd made, every promise we'd sworn to each other, gone in one sentence. She expected me to smile. Can you believe that? She actually expected me to sit there, nod my head like some kind of puppet, and agree to let her explore what she called modern love. She had this whole speech prepared, I could tell. She'd rehearsed it. Probably practiced it in front of the mirror while I was at work, busting my back, to provide for our family. She talked about evolving, about growing beyond outdated relationship structures, about how people aren't meant to be with just one person forever. She used words like polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, as if putting fancy labels on betrayal somehow made it acceptable. As if reading a few articles online and listening to some podcast gave her permission to destroy everything we built together, but she didn't expect what I placed on the table the next morning. No. She thought she had me figured out. She thought I was safe. Predictable. That I'd roll over and take it because I loved her. Because I was the nice guy, the stable one. The provider. She thought she could have her cake and eat it too, keep me as the reliable husband at home while she went off to play house with her boss. Her sophisticated, successful, silver-tongued boss who probably fed her lines about how special she was, how she deserved more, how she was wasted on someone like me, not permission. Divorce papers. That was my revenge. And that moment, the moment I slid that manila envelope across the same table where she destroyed my life, that moment changed everything forever. Before I tell you exactly how it all unfolded, how I went from the lowest point of my life to where I am now, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and comment where in the world you're watching from, seriously. Your comments help this channel grow, and your support means everything to me. This story isn't easy to tell. It took me months to even be able to speak about it without my voice cracking. But if sharing my pain, my mistakes, and my recovery can help even one person out there who's going through something similar, then it's worth it. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're from. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. We met when I was 28. She was 26. Sarah. God, even saying her name still brings up this mix of emotions I can't fully describe. Love. Rage. Nostalgia. Disgust. All at once. We met at a friend's barbecue. One of those perfect summer days where everything feels possible, you know. The sun was shining, music was playing, and there she was. Beautiful. Laughing at something someone said. Her hair caught the light in a way that made her look almost ethereal. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's the truth. I was drawn to her immediately. We started talking. She was smart. Funny. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when she looked at you. We talked for hours that day. About everything. Our childhoods. Our dreams, our favorite movies and books. She wanted to travel. To see the world. To do something meaningful with her life. I was working in construction management at the time, building my career, saving money. I told her about the house I wanted to buy someday. The family I wanted to have. She smiled at me like those were the most wonderful dreams she'd ever heard. We dated for 2 years. 2 beautiful, hopeful years. Sure, we had our small arguments like any couple. But nothing serious. Nothing that ever made me doubt we were right for each other. She was my person. I was hers, or so I thought. We got married on a beach in California. Small ceremony. Just close friends and family. She wore a simple white dress and looked absolutely radiant. When I said my vows, I meant every single word. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. Till death do us part. I looked into her eyes and I saw our future. I saw growing old together. I saw everything. The first 5 years of marriage were good. Really good. We bought a small house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. We painted the walls together. Picked out furniture. Planted a garden in the backyard. I worked long hours, sometimes 6 days a week, to make sure we had everything we needed. Sarah worked in marketing at a mid-sized company. She was ambitious. Always talking about moving up, making a name for herself. I supported her completely. I'd come home exhausted, covered in dust and sweat, and I'd still ask about her day. Listen to her talk about office politics and her projects. I was proud of her. I wanted her to succeed. Around year 6, things started to shift. Subtle things at first. She'd stay late at work more often. Come home, distracted. She'd be on her phone more, texting, always texting. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd say, just work stuff or the group chat. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? We were married. We'd built a life together. Trust was the foundation of everything. Then she got a new boss. Richard. She started mentioning his name constantly. Richard thinks we should pivot the marketing strategy. Richard wants me to take the lead on the new campaign. Richard says I have real potential. At first, I was happy for her. It sounded like she finally had a manager who recognized her talent, who was giving her opportunities. I encouraged her. That's great, babe. You deserve recognition for all your hard work, but the late nights became more frequent. The business trip started. Weekend conferences. Team building, retreats. Every time, I'd wish her well. Kiss her goodbye. Tell her I'd miss her. Because that's what you do when you love someone and trust them. You support their career. You don't become a jealous, controlling husband who questions every business trip. I didn't want to be that guy. So I swallowed my growing unease and told myself I was being paranoid. The intimacy between us started dying. Slowly at first, then rapidly. She was always too tired. Too stressed. Had too much on her mind. I'd reach for her in bed and she'd mumble something about needing sleep. About having an early meeting. Months went by. Then a year. We went from making love several times a week to once a month. Then once every few months. I tried to talk to her about it. Sarah, I feel like we're drifting apart. Like, we're roommates instead of husband and wife. She'd sigh. Say she was just stressed about work. Promise we'd reconnect soon. It never happened. I started working harder. Longer hours. Taking on extra projects. Partly to provide more for us, but if I'm honest, partly to avoid the emptiness at home. The silence. The way she'd barely look up from her phone when I walked in. The way she'd talk about Richard and her job with more passion than she'd shown me in years. I told myself, it was a phase. All marriages go through rough patches. We'd get through it. We'd reconnect. We just needed time. I was a fool. Then came that night. That horrible, world-ending night. I'd gotten home early for once. Made dinner. Set the table nicely. Lit candles. I thought maybe if I made an effort, if I created a romantic atmosphere, we could remember why we fell in love. We could talk. Really talk. Reconnect. I was desperate to save what we had, Sarah came home around 7. She looked surprised to see the dinner, the candles. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw guilt flash across her face. But it was gone so quickly I convinced myself I'd imagined it. We sat down. Started eating. I asked about her day. She gave short answers. Distracted. Kept glancing at her phone. I could feel my frustration building, but I pushed it down. Tried to keep things light, then she put down her fork. Looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in what felt like months. And, she said, "Josh, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. Everyone knows nothing good ever follows those words. I put down my fork too. Waited. My heart was pounding. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said. "About us. About our relationship. About what I want out of life." She paused. Took a breath. "I don't think traditional marriage works for me anymore. I think we've outgrown this model." I stared at her. Didn't understand. "What do you mean?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Distant. "I want us to open our marriage," she said. Just like that. Like she was suggesting we get a new couch. "I've been reading about it. A lot of people are moving toward non-monogamous relationship structures. It's healthier, more honest. We can both explore connections with other people while still maintaining our primary partnership." The words didn't make sense. It was like she was speaking another language. I felt like I was falling, but I was sitting perfectly still. "You want to sleep with other people," I said. Not a question. A statement. Trying to translate her corporate speak into reality. "I want us both to have the freedom to explore connections," she corrected. "To grow as individuals. To not be limited by outdated societal expectations about ownership and exclusivity." The rage started then. Building in my chest like pressure in a volcano. But I kept my voice calm. "Is there someone specific you want to explore a connection with?" I asked. I already knew the answer. I think I'd known for months. Maybe longer. But I needed to hear her say it. She hesitated. Then nodded. "Richard and I have developed feelings for each other," she said. Said it so calmly, like she was reporting the weather. "We haven't acted on them. We've both been committed to being ethical about this. But the feelings are there. They're real. And I don't want to suppress them anymore. I think you and I can both be happier if we're honest about our needs and allow each other the freedom to fulfill them." I stared at her. This woman I'd loved for 10 years. Who I'd married. Who I'd worked myself to exhaustion for, who I'd built a life with. And she was sitting there, in the candlelight I'd set up to be romantic, telling me she was in love with another man and wanted my permission to sleep with him. While staying married to me. While living in the house I'd bought. While I continued to be the stable, reliable provider she could fall back on. "No," I said. Simple. Clear. "Absolutely not." She looked surprised. Actually surprised. Like she genuinely expected me to agree. "Josh, I really think if you give this some thought, if you educate yourself about alternative relationship structures," I said. No. My voice was louder now. The rage breaking through. "You're asking me to watch you have an affair with your boss and act like it's some enlightened, progressive choice. That's not happening. Ever." Her expression hardened. "This is exactly the kind of possessive, controlling attitude that's toxic." She said. "I'm not your property. You don't own me. I have the right to pursue happiness, you have the right to get divorced," I said. "That's the right you have. If you want to be with Richard so badly, then we end this marriage and you go be with him. But you don't get both. You don't get to have me as your safety net while you screw around." She stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. "I thought you loved me," she said. I thought you'd want me to be happy. This is who I am, Josh. This is what I need. If you can't accept that, then maybe we're not compatible anymore, maybe we're not, I said. My voice was cold now. All the rage had crystallized into something hard and frozen. In my chest. If this is who you are, then you're right. We're not compatible. Because I'm someone who believes in the vows we took. The promises we made. She left the kitchen. Went upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close. I sat there at the table with the cold food and melting candles, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. Something deeper. Something fundamental, the image I'd had of my life. Of who I was. Of what my marriage meant. All of it shattered. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling. Replaying everything. Every late night at work, every business trip. Every time she'd been on her phone, smiling at messages. How long had this been going on? How long had she been emotionally involved with Richard? Had they kissed? Touched? More. The images tortured me. I felt sick. Physically sick. Like I wanted to vomit but couldn't. By morning, I'd made my decision. If she wanted out, she could have out. But on my terms. Not hers. She didn't get to redefine our marriage to suit her affair. She didn't get to keep me as a backup plan while she explored modern love with her boss. She wanted freedom. She'd get freedom. Complete freedom. Without me, I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years I'd taken a sick day. Then I looked up divorce attorneys. Found one who had good reviews. Specialized in men's rights in divorce proceedings. Called and made an appointment for that afternoon. The receptionist asked what the situation was. My wife wants an open marriage, I said. My voice sounded dead. I want a divorce instead. The attorney's name was Margaret Chen. Tough. Sharp. In her 50s with gray hair she didn't bother to dye and eyes that had seen every kind of marriage disaster. I told her everything. She listened without judgment. Took notes. When I finished, she nodded. You're making the right choice, she said. What your wife is asking for is a have your cake and eat it too situation. These rarely end well for the spouse who tries to maintain the status quo while their partner explores. It becomes a slow torture. We drafted papers that afternoon. I had to give her basic information about our assets. The house. Savings, retirement accounts. It was depressing. 10 years of building a life together reduced to a list of items to be divided. Margaret said she'd have everything ready within 48 hours. She advised me to document everything. Keep records of Sarah's whereabouts. Save any messages. Just in case things got contentious, I went home. Sarah was already there. Working from home, apparently. She was in the home office on a video call. Laughing at something. I wondered if it was Richard on the other end. The rage flared again, but I pushed it down. I needed to stay calm. Stay focused. That evening, she tried to talk to me. Josh, I don't want us to fight, she said. I love you. I do. I just think we can love each other differently. More freely. Can we at least discuss this rationally? There's nothing to discuss, I said. You want to be with Richard. I won't stop you. But I won't be part of it either. You're being stubborn, she said. Frustrated. This isn't about you versus Richard. This is about evolving, growing. We can both see other people. You could date too. Find connections. Explore. I don't want to explore, I said. I wanted a wife. A partner. Someone committed to our marriage. That's not you anymore. So there's nothing left to talk about. She walked away angry. Slammed the office door. I heard her on the phone. Couldn't make out the words, but I knew who she was calling. Complaining to Richard about her unreasonable husband who wouldn't see the light, about progressive relationships. The next day I worked. Threw myself into it. Anything to not think. To not feel. My phone buzzed a few times, Sarah texting me. I didn't read them. Couldn't. The following morning, Margaret called. Papers were ready. Did I want to come sign them, or should she have them delivered to me? I'll pick them up, I said. I wanted to hold them in my hands. Make this real, I went to her office during my lunch break. She handed me the manila envelope. It felt heavier than it should have. Like it contained more than just paper. It contained the end of everything. The death of my marriage. The future I'd imagined. Gone. Once you serve these, there's a cooling off period, Margaret explained. She'll have 30 days to respond. Things might get emotional. She might try to talk you out of it. Beg. Make promises. You need to be prepared for that. Stay strong. Remember why you're doing this. I nodded. Took the envelope. Drove home. Sarah's car wasn't in the driveway. At work, I guessed. Or maybe, with Richard. I sat in my car and stared at the house. Our house. The place where we were supposed to build our life together. Now it was just a building. Just walls and a roof. The meaning had drained out of it. I went inside. Set the envelope on the kitchen table. Exact same spot where she'd sat 2 nights ago and asked for an open marriage. Poetic justice, I thought. Then I packed a bag. Clothes. Toiletries. Laptop. I'd stay at a hotel for a few days. Give her space to process. Give myself space to not have to look at her face when she realized I was serious. I left a note next to the envelope. Simple. These are divorce papers. I've already signed them. You want freedom. This is me giving it to you. Completely. That was it. No explanations. No emotional outpouring. Just facts. I drove to a Holiday Inn near my work site. Checked in. The room was depressing. Beige walls. Floral bedspread. Smelled like cleaning chemicals and sadness. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone, waiting. I knew it wouldn't be long. An hour later, my phone exploded. Calls. Texts. All from Sarah. I let them ring. Watched the screen light up, over and over. Finally, I turned it off. Put it in the nightstand drawer. Couldn't deal with it. Not yet. That night I lay in the hotel bed and cried. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and primitive. Gut-wrenching sobs that hurt my chest. I'd held it together for 2 days. Stayed strong. Taken action. But alone in that generic hotel room. The grief hit me like a tidal wave. I cried for my marriage. For the future I'd lost. For the trust that had been shattered. For the woman I loved who didn't exist anymore. Maybe, had never existed. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls. 50-something texts. A dozen voicemails. I didn't listen to them. Didn't read all the messages. Just scanned enough to get the gist. She was shocked. Angry. Couldn't believe I'd do this. Wanted to talk. Begged me to come home so we could discuss this, like adults. Said I was overreacting. That I was throwing away our marriage over nothing. She called her affair, because that's what it was, regardless of whether they'd physically consummated it yet. Nothing. The disrespect was staggering. I texted back once. The papers say everything I need to say. You'll hear from my attorney. Then I blocked her number. I couldn't keep having the same argument. She wanted me to be okay with her betrayal. I never would be. There was no middle ground. I went back to work. Told my foreman I was dealing with personal issues and might be distracted. He was a good guy. Didn't pry. Just nodded and told me to take whatever time I needed. But I didn't want time. I wanted to work. To exhaust myself. To focus on something concrete and physical. Pour foundation. Frame walls. Hang drywall. Tasks that had clear beginnings and endings. Unlike my marriage. Days passed. Then a week. Margaret called. Sarah had been served. She'd signed for the papers but hadn't filed a response yet. She might try to contest it, Margaret warned. Draw things out. Make it difficult. Are you prepared for that possibility, whatever it takes? I said. I'm not backing down. Good, Margaret said. Stay strong. And remember, document everything. If she starts harassing you, making threats, anything like that, save it all. It helps, harassing me. The thought hadn't occurred to me. Sarah wasn't that type. Was she? But then, I'd thought she wasn't the type to cheat either. Clearly, I didn't know her as well as I believed. She found out where I was staying. I don't know how. Maybe she tracked my credit cards. Maybe she called around to hotels near my work. But she showed up at the Holiday Inn one evening. I was coming back from getting fast food. My diet had gone to hell, eating nothing but burgers and pizza, and there she was. Standing by my truck in the parking lot, my heart lurched. She looked terrible. Hadn't slept. Hair messier than I'd ever seen it. Eyes red and swollen. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Hold her. Tell her everything would be okay. 10 years of loving someone doesn't just disappear overnight. But I forced myself to stay cold. Remember why I was here, Josh, she said when she saw me. Her voice cracked. Please. We need to talk. No, we don't, I said. Kept walking toward the hotel entrance. She followed. You can't just end our marriage without even discussing it, she said. Desperate. That's not fair. I deserve a conversation. I stopped. Turned to face her. You want a conversation? Fine. Here it is. You fell in love with another man. You asked me to stay married to you while you pursued a relationship with him. I said no. I filed for divorce. That's the conversation. It's over. I made a mistake, she said. Tears streaming down her face now. I got confused. Work was stressful and Richard was there and I mistook support for something more. But it's you I love. You're my husband. Please, don't throw away 10 years over a moment of confusion, a moment of confusion. That's what she was calling it. Months of emotional affair. Falling in love with someone else. Planning a whole speech about open marriage. A moment of confusion. If it was just confusion, you would have stopped it, I said. You would have shut it down. Put distance between you and Richard. But you didn't. You leaned into it. And then you asked me to accept it. To participate in my own humiliation. So no. This isn't a moment of confusion. This is you showing me exactly who you are, and I'm finally believing you. I'll quit my job, she said. Frantic now. I'll never talk to Richard again. We can go to counseling. Work on us, rebuild. Please, Josh. Please don't do this. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved so much. And I felt nothing. Empty. The love had drained out somewhere over the past week. Replaced by this hollow space where my marriage used to be. It's too late, I said. Quiet. Final. You killed this marriage the moment you fell for him. The moment you prioritized your feelings over our vows. I'm just making it official. I walked past her into the hotel. Didn't look back. Heard her crying in the parking lot, but I didn't stop. Couldn't. If I stopped, if I let myself feel sympathy, I'd weaken. And I couldn't afford to weaken. This was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I had to see it through. Over the following weeks, Sarah tried everything. Called my parents. My sister. My friends. Told them I was being unreasonable. That she'd made a mistake but was willing to work on things. Some of them called me, gently suggested I reconsider. That everyone makes mistakes. That marriage is about forgiveness. I told them, they didn't know the full story. That this wasn't about forgiveness. This was about respect. And she'd shown me, she didn't respect our marriage or our vows. Eventually, they stopped pushing. Sarah's friends were less kind. Started posting vague things on social media about toxic masculinity and men who can't handle a woman's autonomy. I didn't respond. Didn't engage. Let them think whatever they wanted. The people who mattered knew the truth. The divorce process was brutal. Sarah contested it. Tried to drag things out. Wanted half of everything despite having contributed less financially over the years. Wanted alimony. Wanted the house. Margaret fought hard. We had good documentation. My income. My contributions. The fact that Sarah had been the one to violate the marriage, even if she hadn't technically committed adultery yet, it took 8 months. 8 long, painful, exhausting months. Mediation sessions where we sat across from each other with our lawyers and negotiated the end of our life together. She cried a lot. Begged me to reconsider even as we were dividing assets. I stayed stone-faced. Refused to engage emotionally. Margaret had coached me, don't react. Don't let her manipulate you. Stay focused on the goal. In the end, I kept the house. She got a larger portion of the liquid assets as a trade-off. No alimony since the marriage was less than 10 years. Clean break. Well, as clean as divorce ever is. The day the papers were finalized, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief. Relief that it was over. That I could, finally move forward. Grief for everything I'd lost. Not just Sarah, but the future I'd imagined. The children we'd never have. The growing old together. All of it gone. I changed everything after the divorce. Threw myself into therapy. Found a counselor who specialized in betrayal trauma. Started unpacking not just what Sarah had done, but my own patterns. Why I'd ignored red flags. Why I'd worked so hard to be the perfect husband, instead of demanding reciprocity. Why I'd been so desperate to hold on to something that was already dead. Therapy was hard. Harder than the divorce in some ways. Having to look at my own stuff. My own fears and insecurities. My tendency to overfunction in relationships. To give and give and give without requiring anything back. To mistake being needed for being loved. I started working out. Not obsessively. But consistently. Needed to channel the anger and pain into something productive. Started eating better. Taking care of myself in ways I hadn't for years. I'd neglected my own well-being trying to save my marriage. Now I had nothing to save except myself. Slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. Made the house mine. Repainted. Changed furniture. Removed every trace of Sarah. Every photo. Every gift. Everything. I needed it to be a new space. Not a museum to a dead marriage. I heard through mutual friends that Sarah and Richard got together officially about a month after the divorce was final. Part of me had known that would happen. She'd only offered to quit her job and cut him off when she thought she was losing me. Once I was gone, there was no reason to pretend anymore. They dated for about 6 months. Then broke up. Apparently, the fantasy didn't match reality. Who would have thought? An affair built on betrayal and workplace excitement didn't translate into a stable relationship. Shocking, I won't lie and say I didn't feel a bitter satisfaction when I heard that. I'm human. I wanted her to regret what she'd done. To realize what she'd lost. But I also realized that whether she regretted it or not didn't change anything for me. I still had to rebuild my life. Still had to heal. Her suffering didn't undo mine. A year after the divorce was final, I started dating again. Cautiously. I'd downloaded apps but hadn't been ready to actually meet anyone. The idea of trusting someone enough to be vulnerable again terrified me. What if I chose wrong again? What if I missed red flags? What if I ended up back in the same situation, but I couldn't let fear keep me isolated forever? I started going on dates. Nothing serious. Coffee. Lunch. Casual, just getting used to being single again. To talking to women without the weight of my marriage hanging over me. Some dates were awkward. Some were fine. None of them led anywhere, but that was okay. I was practicing. Learning. I met Rachel about 18 months after the divorce. She was a teacher. Smart. Kind. Had her own scars from a previous relationship that ended badly. We understood each other in a way that made things easier. Neither of us was in a hurry. We took things slow. Very slow. Dated for 3 months before we slept together. 6 months before we said I love you. A year before we moved in together. I was terrified the whole time. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. For her to betray me. To find someone else more interesting. But she didn't. She was steady. Consistent. When she said she'd be somewhere, she was there. When she said something, she meant it. Slowly, painfully slowly, I learned to trust again. Not blindly. I'd never trust blindly again. But trust based on consistent evidence. Based on actions matching words. We've been together 3 years now. Got engaged 6 months ago. The wedding is next spring. And I'm happy, really, genuinely happy. In a way I don't think I ever was with Sarah. Because this relationship is built on honesty. On mutual respect. On both of us showing up. Not on me over-functioning while she checked out. But I'm not going to pretend the betrayal didn't change me. It did. Fundamentally. I'm more cautious now. More aware. I pay attention to red flags in a way I didn't before. I don't ignore my gut when something feels off. I don't make excuses for bad behavior. And I won't ever compromise my self-respect to hold on to a relationship. If Rachel ever came to me and said she wanted an open marriage, I'd be devastated. But I'd also walk away. Immediately. Because I learned that I'd rather be alone than disrespected. The anger has faded over the years. Mostly. There are still moments when I think about that night at the kitchen table and I feel it flare up. The sheer audacity of Sarah thinking I'd just agree. The selfishness. The entitlement, but it doesn't consume me anymore. It's background noise. Part of my story but not my whole story. I've also learned that not all betrayal looks the same. Some people have affairs that are purely physical, mistakes made in moments of weakness. Those are their own kind of painful, but they're different from what Sarah did. She didn't just cheat physically. She emotionally checked out. Fell in love with someone else. And then tried to restructure our marriage to accommodate her affair. That's a deeper level of betrayal. A rewriting of our entire relationship to suit her needs while completely disregarding mine. people sometimes ask me if I regret how I handled it. If I wish I'd tried counseling. Given her another chance, and the answer is no. Absolutely not. Because the moment she asked for an open marriage, she told me everything I needed to know. She told me that she valued her feelings for Richard more than our vows. More than our history. More than me. And once someone shows you that, once they demonstrate that level of disrespect, there's no coming back from it. You can't unsay words like that. You can't undo that betrayal. Could she have changed? Maybe. People do change. People do learn from mistakes. But I wasn't required to stick around to find out. I wasn't required to sacrifice my dignity and self-respect on the altar of working on things. Marriage is a choice. Both people have to keep choosing it. She stopped choosing our marriage. So I stopped too. The divorce was my revenge, yes. But not in a petty way. It was me taking back control of my life. Taking back my power. Refusing to be a victim or a doormat. It was me saying, I deserve better than this. I deserve a partner who honors their commitments. And if you won't be that person, then I'll find someone who will, and I did find that person. It took time. It took healing. It took a lot of hard work in therapy and a lot of painful self-examination. But I found her. And I built a better life than I had before. A life based on mutual respect and honest communication. A life where I don't have to wonder if my partner is secretly in love with someone else, a life where I can trust. So if you're out there and you're going through something similar, if your partner has betrayed you or is asking you to accept something that violates your boundaries, hear me when I say this, you deserve better. You deserve respect. You deserve someone who chooses you wholeheartedly. Not someone who wants you as a backup plan, while they explore other options, and if that means ending the relationship, if that means going through the pain of divorce or breakup, then so be it. Yes, it will hurt. God, it will hurt. There will be nights when you cry so hard you think you'll never stop. Mornings when you wake up and for a split second you forget, and then you remember and the pain crashes over you all over again. Days when you question your decision. When you wonder if you overreacted. If you should have tried harder, but you push through. You do the work. You go to therapy. You lean on friends and family. You take care of yourself. You rebuild. And eventually, slowly, the pain lessens. The wound scars over. And you realize you're stronger than you thought. You survived something you didn't think you could survive. And you're better for it. I'm not grateful for what Sarah did. I'm not one of those people who says, I'm thankful for the betrayal because it made me who I am today. That's nonsense. The betrayal was cruel and selfish and it nearly destroyed me, but I am grateful for what I learned about myself. About my resilience. About what I truly value in a relationship. About the fact that I have the strength to walk away from something that's hurting me, even when it's the hardest thing I've ever done.